the thing that's really amazing about, living your purpose is realizing that there's different passions that you can bring into that same purpose. So I started to write a book that I'm not done yet, but it's called The Power of Lists: Manifesting Success Through List Writing. And the idea of it is that, like a vision board or something like that, we can use it as a manifestation tool. It gets, as I said earlier, it helps us to get very clear about, who it is we want to be, what we want to have, that the experiences that we would like to have. And, it also gives us a bench point of looking at the things that we don't want, which sometimes that's all we focus on are the things we don't want, which is then, of course, then, if you look at the way that it works, then if all of our emotions are wrapped up in the things that we don't want, we're just going to end up creating more of it. So better to focus on the things that we do want. So many people don't know what they really, really want. And it's mind-boggling.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dave of Making the Change, Optimize Your Health and Mind. And today I have a superstar with us. We met as she is helping me grow the podcast. So she does a lot of amazing things in the entertainment industry, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about what she does do as we delve into it and how she's had some changes in her life that has brought her to where she is today. So I would like to introduce to everybody Tracey Starr.
Hello, Dr. Dave. Thank you so very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to be here.
As you know, I love to do this unscripted. You were asking me what we were going to talk about, and I didn't want to tell you.
Whatever comes up.
I think the best way is just to let it fly.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things in our lives that are so shall we say, scheduled or planned. And I feel that to really get to truth of it, sometimes you just got to do it from your heart.
Yeah. Well, I
So
definitely hear you.
what we talk about on this podcast is some of the changes that you've made in your life and how they've been instrumental in your life. And so we're going to learn a lot about you, and some things that you have done that have made you the amazing woman that you are.
Mm.
And then we'd love to know some actionable steps that people can take. And after that, we'll go into how they can contact you. And then I always love to know how you're giving it back. Right. So that's, to me, that's one of the
Mm.
most important, gratitude and service. Right. So
Absolutely.
go ahead, Tracey. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the entertainment and motivational speaking? It usually comes from some sort of um, issue that you've had. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how this all started for you?
Absolutely. So, yes, major change comes usually with major challenges, right? And so, let's see, 2012. So I live in, like, currently I live in Las Vegas. At the time I was living in Chicago, which is actually where I was born, grew up in Michigan. But at the time I had a special events catering company, a food retail store, 175-seat restaurant across from the Sears Tower. And, I was rocking it, a couple million in sales, 80 to 100 employees. And it was just nonstop crazy. I had two small kids at home, married, and, seemingly life was really it was awesome. It was exactly what everything I had wanted and worked so very hard 10 years of building it to do. And then challenges. The city of Chicago decided to do a construction project outside of our restaurant, and we ended up essentially on our own island. So where our building was across from the Sears Tower or Willis Tower, Chicagoans. Sorry, it's the Sears Tower. But the building was on the other side of it was the Chicago River, which we had an incredible view. We were working with the city to try to get a boat dock. I mean, we had the plans. It was insane. It was going to be great. And with the Wacker Drive construction project, which was 20, no, I think they started 20, end of 2010, 2011, 2012, all of that fun period of time. When they finally got to our part of the project, we really ended up on our own island, because having the gaping hole, in the street to the river, and then they actually shut down Adams. So the only way you could get to my building was over a boardwalk, and you had to basically walk around 4 different blocks to get to me. So,
Wow.
all of the traffic that we usually had, which was about 1,500 people foot traffic between Union Station and Sears Tower right in front of my restaurant every single day, went to nothing.
Wow.
Literally nothing. And so the only place, I mean, we had 175 seats. The only people that were able to get to us were the people that were in our building, which at the time a lot of people opted to work from home because this was pre-COVID, but it was still a time when people didn't want to have to deal with the construction and all the other nonsense. And so, we would have standing room only wait on a Friday night to 4 people in my bar.
Wow.
And so very quickly, it became evident that this was not sustainable. Tried working with the city in getting a resolution of something that we could do that would kind of move us from, a bridge of some kind to when we were on the other side of it. And well, sadly, it didn't happen. We had several crazy offers and things that happened with the city and actually the Chicago mob, and some other fun things that happened because Chicago's a fun city to be in. But it just ended up being that that was not divine. What was meant to happen was for everything to fall apart in my life and us to sort of decide that this whole world that I built was done.
I think that's important though. I think you really have to kind of hit bottom before
Yeah.
you're able to make that change. We all adapt and evolve, but
Yeah.
I think the people that really come out successful understand that you have to recognize where that bottom is. And a lot of times, as we coach people and we motivate people, we try to prevent them from hitting that bottom. Um, but you really need to go through it some.
A Absolutely. I mean, it's even like with our kids, right? It's like, "Okay, there's a pothole over there. You want to avoid that," but then they jump right into it, and you're like, "Okay." But, my main saying through all of this has come out to be, it's all divine. Just trust and have faith. You might not like it right now. It may not be, what you think it should be or the path that you think you should be on, but, there's a greater plan, and you really just have to lean into it because the lessons that all of everything that I'm gonna tell you I'm so grateful for because it made me who I am today. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now, any of this, right? So, my whole life falls apart, right? And I have no idea what I'm going to do. My husband and I had worked on the company together, so all of our personal livelihood was tied into all of this. So literally we were losing everything. And what miraculously happened is, so this was 2012. 2006 when, the movie The Secret came out. I'm not sure if you or the audience are familiar with it, but The Secret is a documentary film, kind of law of attraction, how your thoughts create your reality. And, I had seen that in 2006 when Oprah had, showcased it and was like, "Oh my god, there's other people who think like I do. This is amazing." And so I at the time had, written a list, and we'll get into the whole list thing in a second, but, um, kind of a bucket list, right? Things I wanted to have, do, be, or experience, and then I wrote on there that I want to befriend, and I wrote down the name of everybody in the movie. And that same year, I met this woman, Deborah Poneman, who mentored Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Marcy Shimoff, Janet Atwood, blah, 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 and me. So we just became friends. I met her because she lived a block and a half from my retail store and used to eat my food. And so it was just, we just became friends. Well, so 6 years later, when, I'd have no idea what I'm going to do with my life, I'm not sure what, I have no idea. She invited me to a Sri Sri Ravi Shankara event. So if you're familiar with Guru Dev, he's an incredible spiritual leader. And so I walk into this very large gathering because all of his gatherings are tons of people and everyone is in kind of a meditative state. And so, everyone's sitting cross-legged on the floor and it's very calm and just the energy in there is just very um I don't know, that you can't explain the energy. It was just incredible. And so I met Deb at the lobby, and I kind of gave her an update of what was going on with everything in my life, and I have no idea what I'm gonna do, and she starts jumping up and down like a cheerleader, and she's like, "Hey, now you can do what you're meant to do." I'm like, "Okay, great. What is that?" Right? She's like, "Come to work for me." So for 6 months, I worked with her on her Yes to Success program, which is a personal development program I had actually taken with her in 2011, and I thought, "Okay, well, personal development is absolutely where I wanted to go." When I saw The Secret, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is," I started diving into, all of the experts in the movie, all of their content, watching What the Bleep and, Power of Now and just, kind of getting into that more, um, I don't wanna say metaphysical persona, but it's just really, really looking at life differently and how I can create it. And
Well, is it really
so,
looking at life, or is it kind of manifestating what you want?
well, it's really both, right? Because life is a
Exactly,
manifestation, right? And
exactly.
and yeah, so it was really like evaluating kind of everything and how I'd been programmed and taught and things, and just really rewiring the things that I was going through, on my own. And so I worked with her for 6 months, and then she and Marcy, who was in The Secret, decided to create, a program called Your Year of Miracles, which is actually still going. Marcy's still running it. Which was a year-long group mentorship program for women. So this is my kind of first real intake into the program development side of personal development and the internet marketing side of it, or digital marketing part of it. And so started working with them, creating the program, getting everything set up online, and then we brought in affiliates. So then I got to learn affiliate marketing. Well, we had over 200 affiliates, and because of that, our launch was a seven-figure launch.
Wow.
We had 1,400 members in 52 countries, because we had so many affiliates. And almost all of the people in The Secret were affiliates because Marcy was. So here I have my lists book, or my bucket list going, "Okay, well, befriend," right? I'm now working with these people because I'm also helping manage all the affiliates, right? So I'm crossing off names on my list from 6 years prior. And as you start to move into, any kind of, business, when you're working in digital marketing especially, you have launch periods, and then you have the program periods. Well, the program periods, you have a lot of dead time. And so I started, getting requested to work with some of these experts on their programs and helping them to launch books and to create programs and events. And, honestly, it's just been a huge opportunity to work with speakers, authors, transformational leaders, and do everything that you can think of in the digital affiliate and interview marketing space. And so it launched my career into what I do now, which I freaking love because I get to work with some of the most amazing humans on the planet and really helping humanity, because all of these people, like, that's their intent, right? Is to help people, live life better, be better, grow, move through challenges, all of it. And I kind of get to be the bullhorn for them. So, I was kind of, in the background all of this time, and so for the last 10 years, I've really had a huge opportunity to learn everything and all the different aspects of that, that business model. But then to really look at how can I contribute? And so 4 years ago, after being asked 1,000 times, podcasting started to come out into the world. Can you get me an interview? Or people requesting that my clients be on interviews. And so here I started playing matchmakers with interviews. And I thought, well, this is kind of fun. I really like this. It might be really good to, kind of start an interviewing company. So interview marketing is something that I don't know that anybody really coins it quite that well, but it is podcasting and podcast guesting and launching podcasts and, the management part of it. And so I've been doing that. That's a big chunk of what I do. I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur and other things too, but I love it. It's so
We're
much
gonna go
fun.
into all of that because
Yes.
this is how we met, is
Yes,
as we're
exactly.
trying to grow this podcast and get it out to the rest of the world, because I find that people really need to know that they can do this too. They
Yes.
they can find their purpose, and and elevate the rest of the world because we all have challenges and it's all different. And, and I'm like, wow, we're just talking to you about you getting me booked somewhere. And I'm like, I got to have you on my
I
podcast.
know, it was actually a really it was an amazingly fun conversation, but it's it. It's like, my thing about podcasting that I absolutely love so much is it is easy for, virtually anyone to get into, and it gives you a global voice that is different than anything else. You can do a video on Instagram, which you get that, but when you do, a half an hour with someone and you're having this kind of dialogue, people understand it, they resonate, and so they get to see how you think, how you work, what are your interests, and learn something that, they're not gonna see on the 30-second or 60-second, TikTok video or something. Um,
Right, and it's not
and
really selling, you're not selling the businesses, you're selling you. You're selling what about
Right.
you? What has happened to me? What
Mhm.
can how can I help you with what has happened to me? And you can't get that into a little 30-second reel, you know?
You can't, and it's the stories that we tell, that we go through, right? And when we share them with others, it can help other people. So it's exactly what you're doing with this show is exactly what, so many others have the capability of doing if they just decide to do it.
Right, and that's part of making the change. It's right.
Yes.
I have to have habits, I have to do all these other things, but you know what? There's nothing worse than the act of inaction. If you
Uh,
never take that first step, you're never going to make a change. You're never going to get out of where you are unless you take that first step. So, your first step is this amazing opportunity
mhm.
of people that you surrounded yourself with for a job. And now it has ended up giving you a platform to do the same for other people.
Exactly. Isn't that incredible?
So now that's where it started, right? So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
now you said you're a serial entrepreneur. So, what has that
yes.
led you to?
Right. So being in the world with the folks from The Secret, I because I had that bucket list, right? Um, I kind of, life
How
happens,
big
right?
is that bucket list?
That bucket list is 300. Actually, mine
Wow.
currently is more than 300. So yeah, let
You
me
have
let me
it do
let
you
me
have it
tap into that.
segregated? You
I
have it
do.
like a business
Oh,
bucket
it's
list and a family bucket list?
well, I have details into it. So I'm right brain, left brain. I'm a Libra, so I kind of do both, but I have a
As a mom.
spreadsheet and then I have also the visioning one, right? So I get into the absolute details because I think it's so important when you're creating, a wish list is actually what I call it. So to jump ahead, one part of the story is I currently have a Facebook group, the 300 wish list, which has been kind of a little dormant recently just because I've been so busy with the other business. But the idea of it is that you write a list of 300 things you want to have, do, be, or experience, and you get really clear about these things because what when we're manifesting, and we're doing it all of the time on autopilot, we're just doing it. And when we get clear about what we want, that's when we start to see the magic, but you have to take action. So it's like, like with The Secret, it's like, okay, you can watch it. People might sit on the couch like, okay, I'm visualizing winning the lottery or whatever. Well, you have to still go to the store, buy a ticket, scratch it off. I mean, there's still things that you have to physically, you have to take action, as you were saying. You can't just, visualize and expect it to happen. There's pieces to it, right? So there's a process in which, the visualization has to be like you can close your eyes and feel yourself driving that car or taking that vacation. You're on the airplane with your family. You're at the restaurant at the top of the Eiffel Tower. You can smell the food and you can you can see the beautiful view. You really have to put yourself into the space when you're creating your vision lists because the more you do that, the more it becomes real, and that's how this world tends to work is acting as if. And making these changes is making it non-negotiable too. So my course of life, so that was one major change. The next major change was 2015. So that was 2012, 2015. Moved to Las Vegas with my husband and two children. And 6 months later, he moved in with another woman. Yeah. So after 22 years of life, we're marriage together. My that whole world went upside down. And so at the same time, I wrote my perfect partner list because clearly that wasn't it. So at the top of it, I wrote, I don't need to date. I'll know when I know. And I wrote, international, motivational, transformational leader wants to help people live a better life, yada, yada, yada. And was very clear about the qualities and the characteristics of the person that I wanted to be with. And it took another 5 years, mind you, because I had to be the person who was ready to be in that relationship, and I had a lot of work to do with the divorce and the kids and the single mom syndrome stuff that I went through and just, changing who I was and how I was showing up. And in 2019, I went to a birthday party and I met Bob Doyle from The Secret, who actually I'd talked to him years and years ago because we had we had connected through your Year of Miracles program. But yeah, we sat and dinner and talked about how happily single we were. The next day, I invited him to a networking event, and then we made out in the parking lot, and we've been together ever since. There was no dating,
Well,
so
but I have to tell you, I think that's really important. One point that you brought up, we all have challenges. A lot of them are personal challenges, relationship challenges.
mhm,
Sometimes they're at work, with different situations and how you're dealing with people at work. We take that home. And then you
yep,
have a whole other life at home with this person. And if you continue to take that luggage home, it takes away from that little basket of goodwill that you have for that person, right? So, a lot of us, when you're in those relationships for a long time, we really stop to continue to add to that little basket and we just start to take away and it wears at the strength of the relationship. And the only real way to fix that is like you did, is work on you,
right,
right? Not work on the other person. It's what do I need? What do I have to fix? What is different about my needs than where I was before? And then you can fix the relationship part. And a lot of times, once you work on you, that relationship wasn't right for you anyway. And you were
mhm,
able to do it the other way. You ended the relationship first, and then you started to work on you. And I think you need that the point in your life, right? That dip pit that you fall in to really start to rediscover and work on you. And that's what you did there. And until you were completed with the work on you, then all of a sudden the right man just fell in. And
yes,
he was there the whole time. Like it
right,
right, but you weren't able to accept that yet because you
correct.
weren't ready. And then as soon as you were done working on you, boom, fell right into your lap.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, yeah, talk about a tip, right? It's, if you're in a space where you're, not in a relationship and you feel the need to be in one to feel complete, then that is the absolute worst time to be in a relationship. It's, it's like, have a relationship with yourself first. Really, learn about the things that you absolutely love and are non-negotiable. I'm really like strongly about this non-negotiable piece to it because, especially with like the work that Bob does, um, it's all about that. It's like deciding who you want to be, how you want to show up, and then the relationships are gonna come because those once you're strong, it's that self-love piece, right? It's like, nobody can love you unless you love yourself first kind of story, but there's truth to that. Because, if we don't love ourselves, we'll have boundary issues, we'll let, abusive behaviors happen, we'll, start to, change who we're wanting to be, to fit the other mold of the other person. You end up really compromising your gift of this life and not being who you're here to be because you're focused on the other, something outside of you. It doesn't have to be a relationship necessarily. It could be a career, it could be something different like that. But it's coming back to, look in the mirror and spend some time with you to discover, who it is that you are here to be and start to be that. Take the actions to be that, whatever that looks like, you know? It's
I
it's
have
it's a big
found
piece.
that a lot of people in relationships, they tend to want to make the relationship make them happy
Right.
instead of
Yes.
them being happy with the relationship, enhancing their lives. And then when they break up with that person, they get so depressed. And I'm like, yes, but what about you? Right? What was that person adding to your life? And so many times I hear people tell me what people have taken from them
Mhm.
instead of added to them. And so why are you really in that relationship? Right? Every relationship should be adding something into your life. And if it's not, get rid of it. It's just like that
Absolutely.
piece of luggage that has broken wheels and a broken strap. Do you still take that on the airplane? No, because it doesn't move. It's just a piece of luggage. Right? Yeah, big deal. I could stuff all this stuff into my suitcase, but I can't bring it anywhere. And that's what relationships do, right? Those big old relationships that we don't spend time working on, that's the broken strap, right? We
Mhm.
don't try to fix, that's the broken wheels. So it's just a big suitcase lying on the floor. All it does is weigh you down. It doesn't lift you up and bring you something else. So once you fixed you, now you were able to accept someone that was in the same exact predicament as you each manifested each
It's exactly.
other. So, okay,
Exactly, exactly.
so
Yes.
you were able to change the the work or occupation of your life,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What you were meant for. You were able to understand that, you know what, maybe this restaurant business isn't for me, which that's a big adjustment because I have a lot of friends that were in the restaurant industry and it tends to really be rough. It's long hours and
It's
a lot
hard.
of work goes into it. You get out late, start early. Look, I'm a physician. I know that work too, but the reality about it is, it's like I have a friend of mine that used to sell Boar's Head, and he moved out to Illinois and brought Boar's Head out to Illinois. He's the like Boar's Head guy for downtown Chicago.
Very
And
cool.
then Boar's Head started to change policies, and he wasn't allowed to bring anything else onto his truck, and it got so restricted. And he's a chef, right? So he was a chef that would cook all weekend for pleasure and then go and be an entrepreneur with Boar's Head during the daytime. And then as soon as he started to get so much pushback from Boar's Head, what he did was he said, I'm going to teach people in Chicago how to make New York pizza. And that was his concept. And he created not necessarily a chef school, but people that knew how to cook. How do you make pizza? How do you start a restaurant? And now he is living his purpose of helping
Huh.
people do what they want to do, all from getting restricted from Boar's Head. And
I love it.
I met him. We were out at a we were out at a bar, and they were playing some crazy music. And I had on my New York Giant football jacket, which is red, white, and blue. And he comes over to me. Now, everybody from New York, we all have the same accent. So he comes over to me and he goes, "Are you wearing that to look good, or are you really a fan?" And now this is when the Giants were not that good in football. And I have to say, look, I have to be a fan if I'm going to wear this thing.
Very good point, I
And
suppose, yes.
And then he's like, "Hey, my friend's Anthony. I'm from Queens." And I'm like, "Hey, from Staten Island." And we've been friends ever since. That's when I was in medical school. Um, and you know what? I'm like, man, it would be amazing. I was talking to my uncle before that. I'm like, you know what? They don't have Boar's Head out here. I was in the suburbs. My school's in Downers Grove. I was
Yeah.
living in Schaumburg, and they didn't have Boar's Head out in the suburbs yet because it was down in Chicago. And it's more money than the cold cuts that they have. Like, they have like Thurman or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm not a big fan of any of those. I only eat Boar's Head. So I would call my uncle who was in the entrepreneur industry, coming from Staten Island, everybody makes a little bit of extra money. And so he went and he searched for Boar's Head. And like, man, somebody opened up a franchise out in Chicago. So who do I meet? This guy talking about my New York Giants. I met the Boar's Head guy for
Of
Chicago.
course.
And all the people. And that was funny because I always thought, wow, this is where I'm going to get my Boar's Head from. And the next thing you know, boom, life happens. No more Boar's Head. Now he's able to live his purpose, not even knowing that's where he was going. He was just trying to make extra money, bringing other stuff onto his truck, and he got shaken, man. Why? Because they started to take away his bottom line.
Totally.
You have a family to provide for. He had his brothers
Yes.
working for him, and now I'm not able to make this extra money. What am I going to do?
Mhm.
And he
I
took a
call
step backwards, right? And he let me reevaluate what I really want to do. And it was education and helping people. Because look, Chicago loves their Chicago pizza. I'm from New York. I love my New York pizza.
I'm a Chicago.
Right.
I do.
It's different, like Chicago style
Totally
pizza,
different.
the deep dish and all of that. But when you want New York style pizza, they say it's New York style pizza,
Good,
even
yeah.
though they cut it into squares. How do you get squares, slices from a circle? Don't know. Still haven't figured that part out. But being able to adapt like that and really seeing, you know what, there's something else in this for me, and it still was food, right? There's a book by Rick Warren, Purpose Driven Life.
Yes.
And I read that with one of my Bible study groups. And at that time, I was going through some really rough stuff. My business was not where I wanted it to be. And I was really kind of rethinking, like, is it really medicine it?
Yeah.
Um, and and I read that book because I'm like, look, I'm a doctor. That's got to be my purpose, right? But just because you know, have an idea about your purpose on a piece of paper and a workbook, you really need to search inside your heart and say, is this really it? And then is it because that's what you want, or is it really your purpose? And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things to really understand about your life is there's a separation from what you want and what your purpose is. But
Yeah.
when they come together, that's real joy. And that's what you really need to find is my purpose and my wants really have to kind of fit together for that true happiness and that true success. Because there's going to be a lot of rough patches in your life. So you want to make sure you're putting your effort in the right place. So, all right. So what was your next adventure that you went on?
Well, it's kind of interesting because a lot of, what you just said was, I term some of it as, the challenges being cosmic 2 by 4s, right? It's like, we start off life doing the things that we think we want, right? And, maybe it's because, that profession, generally makes a lot of money, or, you really like medical, but you're not really sure exactly what kind of medical, so you go to school and you kind of play around and you sort of figure these things out. But the purpose part of it, that takes some inner work to really kind of navigate what that is. And so for me, during all of this major change, I actually had kind of this weird download, and this is about the same time, as my divorce, was in this I didn't get it necessarily at the time, and it's really kind of very woo, but my purpose is to help raise the vibration of the planet and wake people up to their true nature, which is we are all one, and to help people live a better life, right? So when all of that sort of I look at my life, like I'm a Chicago girl, right? So I majored in theater, minored in art, ended up going back to school for accounting because I got hired by a business development or a business consulting group. We did turnaround management work, so working with troubled companies, either, helping them through it or putting them through bankruptcy, selling it off, mergers, acquisitions, all of those kind of pieces. And in my term of working there, which I found I hated the work, because I'm working with people who are at the very end, they've got the cosmic 2 by 4, right? Like, they're in major change of their life. And, they're not necessarily the easiest person to deal with at the time because they're going through all of it. But what I took away from all of it was the experience of learning what not to do in business and what works, what doesn't work. And so when my husband, then at the time, who was a chef, which is how I ended up in the hospitality world, I can't, I used to claim that I couldn't cook. And the truth of the matter is, since my divorce, I am a damn good cook, but I just didn't cook for 22 years because I lived with a chef. So why would I? But I ended up in that world because I could handle the business side of it. He could handle the kitchen and the operations side of it. So we had a really great partnership. And, and it was amazing when it worked. It was really fantastic. And, when it didn't work, it really wasn't. But it was, through those life experiences that I came out the other side realizing that, why I loved hospitality was because I love to serve people. I like to help people. If I could, I mean, I would do anything in really any profession as long as I was able to help someone. And so that's kind of my, my innate, like, calling and purpose is in that. It's like, I want to help humanity. I want to help people. And this is such a very dense world. And, and we kind of look at things and, we've got the monkey mind going and all of these challenges that come up. But if we could really hone in on the feelings of the things, it's like, well, I like this, I want this. Well, why do you just asking the why? Because you'll find a lot of answers that come out of just that one question.
You know,
Why?
that's funny also because when kids start growing up, right? They're constantly asking why,
Why?
right? And we get all frustrated because of course you know why, but they don't know.
Why?
They're still young, and I wanted to bring up something, and I hope you're ready to talk about it because it's rough.
Okay.
And again, I think we really need to go there because I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Love it.
Um, we've all been in relationships that we we don't have the result that we wanted, right? So for yourself, how did that go? So after
Mm.
your ex was with someone else and you're working on you, right? There has to be a point in that you have to say, you know what? If I was more available or if we had better communication, not saying it's your fault. I'm saying, but there,
No, no, no. I get it.
a relationship is takes two.
Yep.
And I know the same myself. My family's in Jersey and I'm in Florida, and we're going through the same thought process. Um, you know, so and it's rough. It's really rough because you really have to kind of say, I know that they did me, or I know that the relationship is kind of broken. But what was my part in that? You get cheated
Mm.
on. Yes, of course, takes two, right? That person had to make the mistake, and the person that they're with had to make the mistake. But you don't just cheat, right? There's a
Right.
reason that that person wanted to cheat or wanted to go in another direction. So why don't we talk about a little bit of how you
Totally.
worked on you through that realization of that you had that part in it,
Yeah.
You didn't make the mistake, but you had the part in that brought to the mistake. You know what I'm saying?
I totally I totally understand. I absolutely know where you're going. So, in the evaluation of my marriage, as we talked about earlier, actually, in taking that time and space of not dating other people and dating myself, like really looking at me, right? And, who am I in a relationship? And what I discovered is that actually from the very beginning of my relationship with my ex-husband, I've never been good with boundaries because I'm a people pleaser, right? So it's like I always want to help everybody, even if it's like, going to cost me everything. I'm just, shirt off my back, sure. And so with our relationship, I I changed from the very beginning who I was, who I wanted to be, all of it, right? Like I majored in theater, minored in art, and once he and I got together, well, he didn't want me to do theater because rehearsals. I mean, like, I was hardly ever home. I was gone, half the week just in, just being on stage and doing the shows
I
or,
could break a
it
little
just,
tension there, but a lot of times, you don't want your significant other getting into acting because then they know how to play you better.
oh, I actually, here's one thing that I learned about that actually in my self discovery was that what I liked about acting, because it started when I was in the 6th grade. I got the lead in the school play, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is my favorite thing. I wanna do this for the rest of my life." But what I actually realized once I was actually acting was that I don't like acting. I don't like pretending to be somebody else.
Exactly.
What I liked was being on stage. I like being on camera. I like being a presenter. I didn't like pretending. And so that was so when we had this little, thing that came up in our relationship early on, he's like, this is really hard on us because you're not around. And I said, you know what? You're right. And I'm not really enjoying this as much as I thought I was going to anyway. So I switched gears, and
Right.
that's when it's like I switched the work that I was doing at the time. So I ended up doing the business financial consulting and, went back to school for accounting. Completely
Fun
other
working
part
with
of my
numbers.
brain. Right? I mean, I go from, it's like completely different life. And, looking at the 22 years of being together, there was just this pattern of me always giving not like just not speaking my voice, not giving we did the hospitality business. Well, that was really all of his passions. It wasn't mine. In fact, there was a point. So we started our company and then bought another going concern. It was 2002. So we did it over for over, it was like a decade. And in about 2005, I was like, I don't know that I want to do this for the rest of my life. We actually talked to a couple other companies about merging together with them because I kind of wanted out. And when all of that sort of fell through, I was like, okay, well, I either need to be in or out. So I jumped in and we did it for another, 7 years, and we did it really well for 7 years, till the construction. But, the work that we did was incredible. I mean, we had contracts with some of the, University of Chicago and Northwestern, and, we fed Obama and Oprah, and we did all these crazy awesome things. And so I really loved the work we were doing because, again, it was service-based. I was helping people. But, I didn't care to do the operations of slugging food through, the Chicago winter snow. So there were pieces of it that I really didn't care for, but it was for ultimately all of that stuff was his passions. And, and it's like, and so when everything crumbled, I can tell you absolutely what was really harsh and why the breakup was because, we both lost our identities. He lost his identity as being, this guy who has, this multi-million-dollar company with all these different things, and we're doing all this cool stuff to, oh my gosh, who am I now? What am I going to do? I had the same thing, but, was gifted that experience with Deb, who just said, "Well, now you can do what you're meant to do. Come work with me." So I was lifted up through that process. I was given a gift of a vision of something that was more in alignment with my purpose, even though I wasn't even sure at the time what that was. And, it it was how I was showing up in the relationship because then, from 2012 to 2015 when we got divorced, I didn't see it. But, he started going inward and, trying to really hard time figuring out who he was now. And I, went gung ho crazy working a ton of hours in my new passion, my new personal development world.
Are you sure?
And,
You're right. So are you sure you didn't see it or you were just busy working on you that you didn't it didn't matter what he was
I think
was your emptiness there already? Or you know what I'm saying? That like was the relationship
yeah.
part finished?
I was in love with him at the time. I
Okay.
really did like, the divorce was a shock when I would not have moved from Chicago to Las Vegas with my 2 children and not knowing anyone in Las Vegas if I didn't think that we were gonna be together forever. So, I was absolutely shocked when the whole thing happened.
So
Um
so it sounds to me that and it was your time, right? So this was something
Oh,
that
yeah.
had happened,
All
but
divine.
it
Yes.
sounds to me that you were spending so much time working on you that and look, I have to say it's a rough thing to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So the relationship falls out of importance because there's so much work that has to get done on us. And I did the same thing. I picked up and regardless of what my situation was with my family in Jersey, I went out to Florida. I
Yep.
had to work on me to get away from it a little bit, to do more work on me, and I'm still working on me, and that's the whole
Yeah, we
so
are.
this
That's a
is
that's a
it's a
life
part of the
process.
journey, right? It's not a destination, it's a
Right.
journey, and I'm in that journey, and it's a never-ending journey, and it took time for me to really realize that,
Mm.
when I talk to my son who's 10 years old, he's gonna be 11, and he says, "Well, why do you have to have, you know, a place in Florida? Why can't you be here with us?" And I try to explain, this is what I have to
It's
do.
hard. I know.
I have to, like, you can't understand it at 10,
No.
and me not being there, I can't really have an excuse for because it's rough, but
Yes.
but it has to get done because if I don't work on me, I'm not gonna be a good father to you, and if I don't work on me and build the legacy for you, that you're not gonna have to be away from your family, so you
Right.
can have the life that you're deserving to have, and it's rough, it's really rough, and
Yeah.
so I'm hearing I hear that with what's coming out of your story is there was that time that you just said, "You know what? Something's gotta change," and I made my step, and he kinda did the same thing, right? He's kinda working on his own. It brought him into a place that ruined the marriage, but
Right.
the reaction of you were kinda working on you were alone.
It was that, but there's a couple pieces too that I figured out. Like, we for 10 years worked together, partnership in everything that we were doing. And suddenly we weren't, right? So he
Right,
wasn't included in the work that I was doing. And the other thing was that, you know, I was the only income because he hadn't figured out what he was doing. He was, becoming an artist. And, so he was exploring his passions. But, we had small kids. We had two kids. We had to do we had, we had to feed them, right? And, and we were losing everything. So, I mean, all of the, all of what we had, the nest egg, the legacy literally disappeared. And so I was, like feeling like I need to, keep the family together, keep a roof over our heads. So my main focus was that, not him. And that was a big piece of it. I know that for a fact. But then what happened with the divorce is then we ended up with single mom syndrome, which is something I'll talk about more, when my daughter's 18. But it, was hell in a handbasket because now I'm, the, the only income, not really getting support. Um, in fact, I don't want to go too much into the story. I can't necessarily, but that it was just my life was made difficult, and 20 grand on attorneys for, stuff that was like could have gone to our children. Just battles that, and things that happened with my kids that, made it very difficult for me to even do my job or to focus on me. So then I got in a little bit of a tailspin of, I had no bandwidth for me. So I was work and kids. That was my life, so like for the, those 5 years in between meeting the divorce and then meeting Bob, it was really, 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 really rough. I knew that I was on purpose. I knew that the work that I was doing was meaningful and in alignment with who I wanted to be. But I was juggling all of the other pieces of being, essentially both parents, working to raise my children in a way that I thought was, in their best interest and still, finding some space for me. It was definitely a really challenging time. But again, it's all divine. I wouldn't have traded any of that, even though, boy, I wish I hadn't had to have gone through all of it, but I did, and it's made me a much better person, parent, everything. I am so grateful. I still have challenges with, situations because of it, but again, I trust and I have faith. Like, it's all happening now for the highest good of myself, my children, and even my ex. And, what what happens when we hit these spans is that we tend to just like focus on all the negative and the yuck. But if through the process you can say, okay, I know there's a greater purpose. I know that on the other side of this, I'm going to be in a much better space and place, and trust that, because when you get there, you go, that's why. That's why that happened. Now I understand, right? And
I
I
think
look
it's
back at all of those things and it's great, you know?
I think it's important to know it's okay not to have the answer.
Yeah, right. You
And I
don't.
think we fall into that so many times. Like, I have to fix this problem. No, it's the act of trying to fix the problem that's helping you, not the solution. It's what you did to get there. And I think you get so much credit. And I have to tell you, I didn't realize I'm the one that left my family. I didn't realize that the pressure that puts on the family. Like my son's mom, the struggle that she had. I didn't even know that there was resentment there. I didn't know that she was angry at me for not being there to help her with getting them
Everything.
to school and preparing food and even just simple things like cleaning the dishes. You don't realize there's so much that goes into that family life that when someone's not there, now you're doing double.
Yep.
And how dare you leave me like that? We're supposed to be a partnership, you know? But again, if you don't get to that purpose part and you don't work on it and you don't fix it, you're never going to fix the relationship. You're never going to fix, if you don't put the time in, right? You're never going to fix the problems. Even those problems are really the beauty of it, because those problems are what's going to make you that new person that you want to be. So let's go back. So I think we hit on the relationship part, how it really kind of worked on you to push you to be more
Yes.
you wanted to be. So let's go now into the beauty of the entrepreneurship as your mind
Mhm.
continues to blossom. And now the opportunities are you're starting to realize, wow, I have this. How can I help others with this? Right. So what were the
Right.
other opportunities that came to you?
Well, so I've, been part of 2 books that have come out, some collaboratives. I've, helped, create a lot of different programs in the realms of spirituality, different types of personal development, so health and wellness, mindset being obviously a big one since I live with Bob. It's kind of prevalent in my it's, I mean, neuroplasticity. I mean, I can, we could go on for another hour just about that now, but, I've been able to contribute my knowledge, my experience, and my own stories and passions, just like we're doing right now, right? And give those, those tools, those ideas, those, the hope for others to be able to move through whatever it is that they're going through that may have been similar to what I experienced. Because again, it's like really, whatever we're going through can help someone else. And, and when you look at that as an opportunity, even if you help just one other person, there's something about it for me that's worth it. And and so just, being in the world that I am, being really super blessed to be working with the people that I work with, because, it's really, it's the transformational leaders that I have that I can call friends, and I just am so incredibly grateful. But it also gives me a responsibility to help them to help others. And that's kind of where my purpose came in, right? It's like help humanity. And so by being able to, like with the Starrz PR, or, even with like the consulting things that I do for them, I get to help them be better and make a greater impact. And, and then now that my son's grown, he's living in Chicago, my daughter's in high school, they don't really need me in the same they don't really need me. Technically, I mean, of course, our once you're a parent,
Well,
you're always a
they're
parent. I don't care. I don't care how old. I needed my
right,
mom through that divorce, let me just tell you.
right.
So
Yeah, but the kids don't
yeah.
think they need you. I
Oh,
get
yeah,
older.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
16. I got this.
Yeah, their brains aren't developed till they're 25, that's a whole whole 'nother thing we can talk about. But, but really it was like, to look at, how can I contribute? And so this actually came up, so I mentioned the 300 wish list. I had realized that I've been making these lists, and when I looked back, I thought, "Oh my gosh, like I've really that was a tool." Like I can go back and say, "Oh, cross off, cross off, cross off, cross off these things. Wow, I manifested this. This really happened." So, I think it was what 2020, right before the pandemic, somewhere in there. I saw a Steve Harvey video. A friend of mine, Judy Morio, had shown me. She's a business partner in something I do, and she had me watch it, and I thought, this is very much in alignment with what I had already been doing and realized. So I shared it with a bunch of people, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to create a Facebook group and just share it with friends, and so I did that. I started that, and there's like I don't know 700 or 800 people in there right now. I haven't had a lot of time to spend on it, but I intend to. So the thing that's really amazing about living your purpose is realizing that there's different passions that you can bring into that same purpose. So I started to write a book that I'm not done yet, but it's called The Power of Lists: Manifesting Success Through List Writing. And the idea of it is that, like a vision board or something like that, we can use it as a manifestation tool. It gets, as I said earlier, helps us to get very clear about, who it is we want to be, what we want to have, that the experiences that we would like to have. And, it also gives us a bench point of looking at the things that we don't want, which sometimes that's all we focus on are the things we don't want, which is then, of course, then, if you look at the way that it works, then if all of our emotions are wrapped up in the things that we don't want, we're just going to end up creating more of it. So better to focus on the things that we do want. So many people don't know what they really, really want. And it's mind-boggling. So my intent, moving forward with my life outside of, some of the other projects and work that I do is to create tools and to help people to get clear about that, to really like look at themselves in the mirror, to spend some time, with themselves and evaluating the different things and pieces to them. Like, my life, I look at the breadcrumbs. Well, okay, I majored in theater. Like I said, I had that self discovery. I like being on stage. I like presenting. I don't like pretending. So tweak, right? Like there was that cosmic 2x4 that happened, changed it. Now I understand why, right? I look at the
So
hospitality. I
you
loved
thought
being
that
of service.
you thought that the acting was to be on stage to act when it's really to be on stage to make a difference.
Correct. And I had no idea at the time that I could ever make a living or do anything like that, as me.
Right.
Like who the heck was I? Right. I had just, zero, confidence in myself at that point in my life. Like, I wasn't anybody. So why would I think that, I could, actually make a living doing that? Oh my gosh, seriously? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
would
was
be
the
a
same way. I'm
no?
a doctor, right? So
Right.
I never thought that I'm gonna be a podcaster, an author. I got on stage with a group and I'm like, wow, I can I could change thousands of lives in 1 second
Right.
with one conversation.
Yeah.
In the office, I could change quality life in a quality moment.
Yeah.
So I get the best of both worlds because I get to work one on one with people and really make the difference in their life. But then when I get to go out there and I do my speaking, I get to touch so many hearts all at once. So I think that's a really amazing thing that you were able to do the same thing. Wow, look at this acting. But wow, what a door that really opened up for you that you didn't even know was there.
I had no idea. I had no idea, but again, like leaning in, it's all divine. Like, had
Right.
I not had those experiences, I wouldn't be comfortable standing on stage. I wouldn't, feel great being in front of a camera. But I spent years perfecting my presence on those platforms. And so while I'm not doing what I originally had planned to do, I'm doing something so much greater, so much bigger, so much better, and in alignment with who I'm here to be. I just didn't know it at the time.
Right. Excellent. So let's get three little tidbits of what you thinks would be three actionable things people could do for success.
First, write your 300 wish list. So, the Facebook group is free. You're now inspiring me right now. I'm going to go on. I was doing this for a while and life happened. Bob, Bob's dad had Alzheimer's. So like last year, all we did was, go to Atlanta and family stuff. And so I didn't do this project. So that's why there's a kind of a lull and you'll see in posts and stuff. But I'm gonna do this. So I will do a free review. So it's like make your list. So I'll put that on the calendar, and then I'd love for you to join me with that too.
Definitely.
But to just start writing a list of all the things that you want to have, do, be, or experience, because it's that clarity and that vision that's going to help bring those things happening in your life. And then with each one of those, as you're looking through them, right? The action steps, like, okay, I want to, take my daughter to Paris, and have dinner on top of the Eiffel Tower. Well, you know what? Let me look at my calendar. When could that possibly happen? Instead of sitting there, well, I don't have the money to do that right now. Okay, well, could you spend instead of, $5 for a Starbucks, put it in a bank account, right? Start looking at the different things that you can do, the changes that you can make. And
Those
the other
little actionable steps
Yes,
that
yes,
you can
yes, yes. Just
attain.
every day, move the needle forward a little bit every day,
Right.
and you will be it's a miracle what happens. Otherwise, if you're sitting there and you're just saying, "Oh, when I get to it one day," well, one day never really happens, right? Um, so like that's really critical. Um, another thing really would be to ask. So hard for people to ask. Ask for help, ask for ideas, ask for a recommendation, ask for a referral. People have a really hard time with asking because they're afraid of rejection. But the saying with this is really the worst thing that can happen is that they will say no. That's the worst. That's the absolute worst thing that can happen. But if you don't ask, nothing will ever happen.
Right. Going
So
to that active inaction, right?
yes. Yes. So on those tidbits, please start asking. It's like, oh, your friend has another friend who could possibly make that connection for that job you want, or that, car you want, or, the family down the street that you'd, love to have your kids play with, ask for the play date, ask for the connection. Ask for the promotion. The worst thing that can happen is no, and then you know. But if you don't ask, nothing will ever change.
All right. So we'll review those 3 steps, right? So number 1
Yep.
would be the list. And obviously, we want to follow Tracy on Facebook and get in her group because she's going to help you attain that bucket list. You start it today. It's really important to get that list together because you cannot manifest it unless you think about it. The next thing is take those small little steps. Like she said, if you want to get to step B from step A, you have to take the step. It doesn't have to be a giant leap, just something little that you could pat yourself on the back and say, look, I did it. Let me get to that next step. And then last is be able to ask. And you need to be humble. You have to have humility in life, right?
Mhm.
Pride
Yes.
gets you nowhere. But if you never ask, it will never happen.
Right.
Okay, so next, I think it's really important. You do so much for other people, um, and you're giving back just by your purpose. So how can people get in touch with you? How can people get to know more about Tracy? The books that you mentioned you're collaborating on. I'm really looking forward to reading your book when it's finished.
Mhm.
Hopefully,
Thank
I'll
you.
be done with my 300 by then. Um, so why don't you tell a little bit how can they can get in touch with you and where you want to go from there?
Absolutely. Thank you, love. So it's so funny. I do really great marketing for other people, but well, because I was like, okay, well, when I get the book done, then I'll work on my, all the other pieces because, I work on other people's stuff. So for me, honestly, just, getting to the Facebook group, joining the group, friend me or follow me. It's, Tracy Samlo Star. That's Samlo is the ex-husband that'll eventually go away, but since it's, part of who I've been for a while, it's how people find me still, so it's there. And, I have, starrzpr.com, which is STARRZPR.com, so if you're a guest expert, you'd love to get on top rated shows in your niche, check it out, schedule a discovery call with me. They're free. I'd love to, have a conversation. They're strategy sessions really, because I love to dive into who you are, how you want to show up in the world and how that can happen. And I have I have other stuff that I do. That's probably the best way to send them out actually at this point, because once I get the power of lists going, that book is done. That and then we'll come back around to that part of it, because that will be a very exciting time.
Well, I wanted to thank you for this amazing time that we had. I'm really looking forward to working with you in the future, and Starrz PR is amazing. Everybody, it's your way to get to that next level in front of the people that you want to get. Um, so thank you for your time, and we'll speak real soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Day.